Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. All together, please. Om Jnana Timarandasya Ganandana Salakaya Chag Rolon Bilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapidam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Didati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yukta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Prijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karna Sindhu Dhena Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Govinka Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapcha Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhana Sutadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpa Dhruviyascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Paditanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So, reading from Srimad Gita Upanishad, translation and commentary, Srila Prabhupada. Text number 8 to 12. So we've been doing the purport over the previous days. So today we're going to do the last 3 paragraphs of the purport. And as far as the chanting, I'll just read one line and you repeat. And then we'll go straight to the translation. So we'll please repeat. Amanitvam. Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah, that's right. Amanitvam adhambitvam. Ahamse shantir arjavam. Acharya parshanam socham. Steryam atma vinigraha. Indriyateshu vairagyam. Anahankara evacha. Janma mrityu jara vyadi. Dukkha dosha nadarshanam. Ashaktir anabhivangya. Putadhara grahadishu. Nityam cha samachittatvam. Ishthan ishto papishtishu. Mai chananya yogena. Bhakti avya vicharini. Vivita desha sevitvam. Arate jana samsadi. Ajatma jnanam nityatvam. Tattva jnanasha darshanam. Etaj jnanam iti proktam. Ajnanam yat ato nyatha. Translation, Prabhupada. Humility, excuse me. Humility, pridelessness, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching a bona fide spiritual master, cleanliness, steadiness, self-control, renunciation of the objects of sense gratification, absence of false ego, the perception of the evil of birth, death, old age and disease, detachment, freedom from entanglement with children, wife, home and the rest, even-mindedness amid pleasant and unpleasant events, constant and unalloyed devotion to me, aspiring to live in a solitary place, detachment from the general mass of people, accepting the importance of self-realization and philosophical search for the absolute truth. All these I declare to be knowledge, and besides this, whatever there may be is ignorance. So, the last three paragraphs start with, as far as self-realization, page 578 in this book. So, as 578. As far as self-realization is concerned, it is clearly stated here that Bhakti Yoga is especially practical. As soon as there is a question of devotion, one must consider the relationship between the Supersoul and the individual soul. The individual soul and the Supersoul cannot be one, at least not in the Bhakti conception, the devotional conception of life. This service is the this service of the individual soul to the Supreme Soul is eternal, nityam, as it is clearly stated. So bhakti or devotional service is eternal. One should be established in that philosophical conviction. In the Srimad Bhagavatam 1-11, it is explained, Vedanti tatva vidas tatam yajnanam avyayam. Those who are actually knows of the absolute truth know that the self is realized in three different phases, as Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan. Bhagavan is the last word in the realization of the absolute truth. Therefore, one should reach up to that platform of understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead and thus engage in the devotional service of the Lord. That is the perfection of knowledge. Beginning from practicing humility up to the point of realization of the Supreme Truth, the Absolute Personality of Godhead, this process is like a staircase beginning from the ground floor and going up to the top floor. Now on this staircase there are so many people who have reached the first floor, the second or the third floor, etc. But unless one reaches the top floor, which is the understanding of Krishna, he is at a lower stage of knowledge. If anyone wants to compete with God and at the same time make advancement in spiritual knowledge, he will be frustrated. It is clearly stated that without humility, understanding is not truly possible. To think oneself God is most puffed up. Although the living entity is always being kicked by the stringent laws of material nature, he still thinks, I am God, because of ignorance. The beginning of knowledge, therefore, is amanitva, humility. One should be humble and know that he is subordinate to the Supreme Lord. Due to rebellion against the Supreme Lord, one becomes subordinate to material nature. One must know and be convinced of this truth. So, I'll just read the English again. Mukam karochi vachalam phangam laite girim yadkri patamaham bande Shri Guru Dinatarinam. Humility, pridelessness, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching a bona fide spiritual master, cleanliness, steadiness, self-control, renunciation of the objects of sense gratification, absence of false ego, the perception of the evil of birth, death, old age and disease, detachment, freedom from entanglement with children, wife, home and the rest, even-mindedness amid pleasant and unpleasant events, constant and unalloyed devotion to me, aspiring to live in a solitary place, detachment from the general mass of people, accepting the importance of self-realization. You see that? There shouldn't be a semicolon there. That's a mistake in the editing. Accepting the importance of self-realization and philosophical search for the absolute truth. All these I declare to be knowledge, and besides this, whatever there may be is ignorance. So, as we explained last week, in these last 6 chapters, Krishna is giving full Sambandha Gyan to Arjuna. He starts this chapter, Arjuna rather, by asking Krishna, what is Purusha, what is Prakriti, what is the field, who is the knower of the field, and what is knowledge, and what is the object of knowledge. So number 5 there, what is knowledge, is answered here to some extent. These qualities of a devotee and spiritual life, we can understand that this is the qualities of the spiritually situated persons. So this is indicative of the spiritual energy. Besides these, whatever there may be is ignorance. So the counterpoint to these qualities, this long list, that is ignorance. You can find the opposite of all these things in the material world. Instead of humility, ignorance means being puffed up. Pridelessness, people are very proud. It's said that the pauper is proud of his penny, right? Non-violence, violence is ignorance. Intolerance is ignorance. Complexity, unnecessary complexity is ignorance. Not approaching a spiritual master to learn the absolute truth, that is ignorance. Cleanliness, uncleanliness, that is ignorance. Unsteadiness, that is ignorance. Lack of self-control is ignorance. Renunciation, attachment to the objects of sense gratification, that is ignorance. Being entangled in false ego, that is ignorance. Lacking the perception of the evil of birth, death, old age and disease, thinking that this material life of birth, death, old age and disease is a very nice thing. Sometimes, I remember once in Scotland, I think it was, in England, there was one man at the end of the lecture, he jumped up and he said, "What's wrong with becoming a dog in the next life? Dogs don't have to work." So Prabhupada said, "You have my blessing." And the whole audience was in uproar. So people think that, oh, okay, if I have to be born as a dog, what's wrong with that? So, detachment, attachment, freedom from entanglement. So if somebody's too attached, too entangled with the children, wife, home and the rest. So that is ignorance. This actually entanglement, freedom from entanglement, means that it doesn't mean to say you're detached from your wife and children. No, you do your duty, but you're doing it for Krishna. And then that's detachment. Lack of entanglement. You're doing your offering. Sometimes it is said, in the Hare Krishnas we want to put women in a lower place. But the Vaishnava never puts anybody in the lower place. The Vaishnava is a servant of everyone. And even though the man, he may be the predominator of the household, he does not think that his wife and children are there to be exploited. Rather, they are there to be educated. And in the beginning of the Isha Upanishad, it says, Ishavasha idam sarvam yak. Everything is controlled and owned by the Lord. So if you understand that, if you have that consciousness, then you'll not be entangled in family life, even though you are in family life. You'll not think this is my wife, you'll think this is Krishna's devotee. Nothing, these are my children. Superficially they're my children, but they're belonging to Krishna. Everything is Krishna. So the man is not the owner of his wife, his house. He is the servant. So, home and the rest. Even-mindedness, yes, amid pleasant and unpleasant events. So if you're very agitated, tendency to be depressed when unpleasant events happen, or disturbed, or and then you become, over-intoxicated when pleasant things happen, this is ignorance. Why? Because when the mind is over-agitated, when it's not balanced, you cannot fix on the transcendental platform. Yetam mam prapadyante. If you are agitated by the modes and you want to go into that illusory state, then Krishna will not intervene. Krishna will reciprocate by your application, of your consciousness to transcendence, by your your decision to put your consciousness on transcendence. Then Krishna will reciprocate. So the devotee knows he has to make the first step. Guru Krishna Prasadi by Bhakti Latabi. By the mercy of Krishna you will get Guru, but then you have to follow the instructions of Guru to get Krishna. So how will you follow the transcendental instructions of Guru if you are agitated all the time by pleasant and unpleasant events in the material world, the duality of material nature? So the devotee, he trains his consciousness to fix upon Krishna. And that means he has to have control of his consciousness in a balanced manner. He can't be flying here and there according to what people say or what people do to him. Constant and unalloyed devotion to me. So ignorance means lack of devotion. Aspiring to live in a solitary place, right? So that means for meditative and contemplative and for fixing the mind on Krishna. Solitary place also does not mean nirjana bhajan at an immature stage. Nirjana bhajan means no person, nirjana. It means to perform bhajan by oneself at an immature stage is not advisable. So devotees, they should live with people. But that means solitary. It means removed with devotees. They should live with devotees. But it means they should be detached from material association. Because we're tatastha shakti. So we become affected by our association. This is very important, right? So devotee, he only wants to associate with devotees. Then when Lord Chaitanya was asked, who is a Vaishnava? He said, asatsangi chagi, a Vaishnava acha. The Vaishnava is detached from the general mass of people, the non-devotee, asat. Sat means eternal, asat means non-eternal. It means the people who are interested in the non-eternal, the material. Material world is not eternal. It comes and goes, it's in flux. So the devotee asat changi, he gives up all non-eternal association and aspiration. Yes, detachment from the general mass of people. You see, Krishna is following that point. Accepting the importance of self-realization and the philosophical search for the absolute truth. So of course, if people don't want self-realization and they don't want search for the absolute truth, I remember there was once, it was in the newspaper many years back, they had this Miss America contest. I didn't watch the contest, but it was a news headline. And so they interview the applicants at the end. You know, what's your aim in life? And so this girl, I read, she said, I want to know who I really am. What is my real nature? So many people, the interviewer and many people in the audience, they disregarded this statement, and it was a laughing matter. You understand? It was in the newspaper how the audience and the interviewer had denigrated her for this. She was meaning, I want to know my true nature, which is a very noble pursuit. But everybody thinks, I am this body, I am this stupid mind, and that's it. And that's my true nature. So why is she talking about finding her true nature? Right? So they're laughing at her. Some are ignorant fools. So this is the fact. The ignorant people, they think that if you chant Hare Krishna, study the Vedas, associate with devotees, you're missing out on the wonderful things of life, like birth, death, old age and disease, intoxication, mental disease, conflict, international conflict. You're missing out on the good things of life. Why are you looking to the transcendental platform? Why do you want to become Krishna's servant? You can already be the servant of me if you like. So this is the ignorance. But all these counterpoint, these are the symptoms of somebody in transcendence. These things are knowledge. And also later on, when Krishna talks about the supersoul, he says that the supersoul is knowledge. Oh look, it's yeah, there's a misprint. Yeah, it's all right. Yeah, so anyway, when supersoul is described as a small phrase, if I remember correctly, and Krishna says he is knowledge. So transcendence is knowledge. Try to understand that. That knowledge, sometimes we define it as knowing things. How to make glasses, how to grind the lens, how to drive a car, that is knowledge. How to build a house, that is knowledge. But Krishna doesn't say that. Krishna says knowledge is perception of the transcendental platform. That is the source of knowledge. Everything else is ignorance. This whole material world is under the Maya Shakti. Everything is ignorance. So, these are the 6 answers. What is Purusha? That is the Supreme Lord. But in this case, it is Supersoul. What is Prakriti? That is the energy of Krishna. These are the 6 things. So in summation, you're all devotees, you know this. What is the field? The field is the body. Who is the knower of the field? The individual soul and the super soul. So the problem is we're not fixing on the super soul or Krishna, Paramatma. We are fixing on the external world, and we're becoming entangled in Maya, in illusion. An object, knowledge, this is knowledge. Knowledge means that perception of transcendence. Just like there's, in one place, Prabhupada talks about Brahma-vid and Brahma-gyan. So Brahma-vid means the words about Brahman, about the Supreme. So yes, that is transcendental, that is good. But Brahma-gyan means to actually be able to perceive directly and personally through the consciousness Brahman. So Brahma-vid is very good. You get all the knowledge, sadhana, you get the sadhya, the goal, and then you become Brahma-gyan. You actually go from the neophyte stage to realization 24 hours a day of the transcendental platform. So that is knowledge. That is the state of the soul. We hear Satchit Ananda, right? Satchit. Sat means eternal. Chit means consciousness. Sometimes it's called Gyan. So it means that ability to perceive. Chit doesn't mean just being conscious, but rather being conscious of things. Being able to perceive their true nature. Just like in the material world, people don't perceive the true nature. They perceive an illusory conception of reality. So the devotee, he perceives knowledge. In the spiritual world, everyone is in knowledge. That means they're in gyan, they're in correct perception. Here in this material world, people make mistakes about reality, about other people, about themselves, about what they should do in life. But in the transcendental world, that mistake, that illusory conception is absent. Everyone is situated in knowledge. That's something for us to understand. There's a concept in philosophy. There's one philosopher called Popper. He lived in the 20th century. He taught at London School of Economics. So he introduced this concept called verisimilitude. Have we ever talked about this? Veri comes from veritas, means truth, and similitude. Similitude means having the quality of similarity. So verisimilitude means something which appears to be truth. So he was a philosopher, a very intelligent point. He said, and he was a philosopher of science. That means he was analyzing the scientific method and their goals and activities. So he said that actually in science we're moving from one mistaken idea to another mistaken idea. For example, you know Newtonian physics. You know Newtonian physics, the action and reaction and so on and so forth. Well, many of those things have been discarded by the scientists now. They're not accepted. So everyone was saying, oh, Isaac Newton was a great scientist, but now they're rejecting. So that means he was teaching nonsense, right? He was teaching inaccurate stuff. And now then they became into, you know, the Einstein and idea, atoms, molecules. Now it's quantum mechanics or something. You know that a quantum effect. It means that an electron is here and without apparently going over here on a path, it suddenly disappears from here and appears here. So they call it the uncertainty principle. You don't really know where anything is. So this idea is coming, and now they're starting also to reject Einstein's idea. Einstein's idea was that the absolute was the speed of light, but they're performing experiments that prove that the speed of light can be overcome. That there's certain neutrinos. They did an experiment in Switzerland, and they found that certain articles, neutrinos they're called, were traveling faster than the speed of light. So they adjusted their findings. So this is called verisimilitude. It appears to be true. It appears to have some relationship to the truth, but it is not the absolute truth. Just for example, in modern science, what was the idea? I was just thinking. Yes, they say that everything is matter and energy. Right, you've heard this. Space and time, they're very uncomfortable with. They don't know what space is. They can't explain it in terms of atoms and molecules. Now they're waffling on about dark matter. They're saying the universe is dark matter, and it's 90% of all matter, and this, what we see, these bricks and mortars and bodies and fingernails, this is all the 10% or 5% of the universe that's manifest. It's called dark matter because you can't see it. It's obviously related to ether. You remember when you were in school, you were told, oh, the moon is there and Earth is here, right? And there's nothing in the middle. It's empty space, right? The vacuum of space. But the question is very simple. If you send a radio message from a satellite near the moon, how is it getting to Earth if there's nothing in the middle? What is the transmission? What is, just like you need a wire to transmit electricity, you can't, of course you can spark it over a certain distance, but the thing is you must have a medium for the radio signal to come from Jupiter or Saturn, right? So we of course understand that that is the ether. The signals are traveling into the ether, and ether is not composed of atoms and molecules, so you will never explain the universe just out of atoms and molecules, which is their basic premise. Their underlying idea is that everything is just atoms and molecules in a certain state of energy, that the universe is full of energetic matter. So we say, well, wait a minute. We say Shakti, Shaktiman, Prakriti, just like it's mentioned Arjuna. Prakriti is the energy. So we say, yes, there is energy, but you're saying it's impersonal energy, and you're calculating the effects of these energies through your telescopes and microscopes and whatever, voltmeters. You're examining with your thing, and you're coming to a certain conclusion about the energy. But you have an impersonal premise. Try to understand this point, that you think that it is just energy. But the Vedas tell us it's the energy of the Supreme Lord. It's like the electricity is not, it is energy, but it is emanating from the power station, right? So if you think that energy is just floating around in electric cables and you don't relate it to the power station, you have verisimilitude. you can calculate the effect of the electricity in the wires, correct? And you may get some results that are workable, but you don't have the veritas, you don't have the true understanding that this energy is related to the absolute truth, that this is an emanation, that it is based, just like Krishna says, I think earlier, yes, what did he say? Yad yad vibhuti mat sattvam srimad oditam evava, right? That this whole universe is manifest with a single spark of my energy. So the energy, the power station is Krishna. Now if you talk about energy and analyze the energy in the material world, without relationship to the power station, without understanding how it is an emanation from the absolute truth, then that is Maya. That is an illusory conception. You understand? That is ignorance. But if you relate the action of the electricity to the power station, to Krishna, then that is the correct conception. That is knowledge. So we don't say that knowledge means knowing everything because Krishna is Ananta. But you must have the correct conception about reality. Just like the person who understands the electricity in the power cable, of course it's not always there in India, but the electricity the electricity, when it comes in the power cable, it's coming from the electric station. If somebody has that conception, then they have the right idea, you can say. But if they think that electricity is just appearing in my power cable, which is a pretty fair assumption in India sometimes, it's just appearing whimsically. So if you have that idea, rather than the idea the power station is turning on and off the electricity, or somebody's fallen asleep in the control room, if you have that conception, then you're on the right path. That's veritas, that's truth. But verisimilitude, or Maya, is very interesting. Karl Popper, it's like his verisimilitude, his conception of verisimilitude is similar to Maya. So, but his idea of verisimilitude is verisimilitudious idea of truth. So he has only got a negative thing. He can only say, wait a minute, in science we're always changing our ideas and saying we're progressing. But are we just going from one mistake to the other? This is the question he wrote. And he also said, if one is apparently more similar to truth than the other, should we accept that as truth? Just like Newtonian physics has been discarded because it is less similar to truth than Einstein. You understand? But Einstein now is being rejected. So Karl Popper brought up this idea, should we accept Einstein because he's a better idea than Newton? But Einstein, he says, is incorrect. So therefore, what's the use of accepting something incorrect, even though it's different from something else that is incorrect? So anyway, but the point is, so his point is that you must actually discard things that are verisimilitudious or Mayic, illusory conceptions. But it's very good conception. So we, in Krishna consciousness, in the Vedic Siddhanta, we relate everything to the absolute truth. Right? In the 10th chapter we just did, remember? Aham sarvasya prabhavo matak sarvam pravartate. Iti matva bhajanti mam. I am the source of everything material and spiritual. Those that perfectly know this worship me with all their hearts. And I give intelligence to those people. So ignorance is to be absorbed in these mistaken or fragmentary or incomplete conceptions. So even the scientists, some philosophers have pointed out this, that in the material world we're changing our opinion about reality, about atoms and molecules, and therefore what is the true conception? Where is the permanent conception? So they raise these questions, and we say that's very good. You're atato brahmajignas. You're inquiring into what is the absolute. Just like in today's last 3 paragraphs, the importance of self-realization, the importance of the absolute truth. So Karl Popper and his disciples, they're correct. Yes, you should be very, of course, verisimilitude doesn't mean you just give up the ideas, he says, but rather you hold them with a certain tentative point of view. You don't embrace them as truth. You know that they are some indicative, they are inductive rather than deductive. They are inductive similarities to truth, but they're not actually truth. And one should be aware of that. That's his point. That you shouldn't take those things which are obviously incomplete and fragmentary and incorrect in many ways as truth, because you don't know anything better. You understand? Oh, you can take it, yes. For example, the electrical engineer, yes, he knows about electricity, so he can manipulate it. But he doesn't know the full picture of electricity. For example, on this point, you can measure gravity. You can measure the speed an object will fall from the top of a building to the ground. So that's workable. That's a working hypothesis. You can measure the speed and you can use that knowledge. But we understand, so we don't say, and Popper and we don't say, of course, don't discard that knowledge, but know that it is fragmentary. So in Krishna consciousness, we go to the final point. You see, measuring gravity is how gravity works, or it is a mathematical formula. But why gravity exists is another question. You understand? Just like we discussed, people say there's no God because they're suffering, right? But that's all after the fact. Why is there suffering in the first place? You can also ask that question. Why are we existing to suffer? So you can say, you can measure gravity and say, oh, I understand gravity. No. You're measuring gravity, but the how of gravity, but you're not giving the why of gravity, why gravity is working. So, in Krishna consciousness in the Vedas, that is the main preoccupation. What are all these potencies, all this Shakti, all this Prakriti? Where is it all coming from? Just like they have Science magazine, nature. Yeah, but whose nature? Prabhupada says, right? You're talking about nature, but whose nature? If you say he has a nature, then okay, he's very musical, he's very intelligent, whatever. That's his nature. But it belongs to who? That person. Just like these qualities here, all these qualities, these are symptoms. They don't exist in an abstract. They belong to a person. They're found in the consciousness of a realized soul. Huh? So similarly, the energy, all the energies that we're calculating, they are all resting on Purusha. The Prakriti is resting on Purusha. Purusha means the enjoyer, Prakriti means the enjoyed. Purusha means the predominator, the Prakriti is predominated. It is under the control of the Purusha. So that is the complete understanding. So in Krishna consciousness, we don't say get rid of science, but we say understand it through the Vedic paradigm. Yes, measure everything, but put the results within the framework given by the Vedas. And that framework is that everything is controlled and owned. Everything is resting on the Supreme Lord. The power is resting on the power station. It is not just there. Nature is here, but where is the person whose nature is being expressed? You're saying you're looking at material nature, okay, but whose nature? And sometimes people say, right, Mother Nature, right? So of course that's good. We say yes, Mother Nature, it's Prakriti, Mother, Prakriti. Purusha also means male and can be interpreted in a philosophical sense, not material male, but male and female. Prakriti is female. So earlier Arjuna has been told by Krishna, Aham sarvasya prabhavo matak sarvam pravaj. Everything material and spiritual comes from me. So if you're interpreting material nature, Mother Nature, you must ask, where is Father Nature? Right? Because mother, how you can be mother without a father? How mother can produce variety without the father? How the mother can produce children without the father? So the Shakti is of the Supreme Lord, of the Purusha, is pervading reality, and everything is resting upon that. So that is the meditation. Now Arjuna's already been told that, he's already seen that in the universal form, but now Krishna is filling in the details. It's easy to say, Aham sarvasya prabhu, I'm the source of everything. But now, and then you'll find after this chapter, I think it's 3 modes of material nature. So this is a further detail of how the material energy works. For example, I was reading the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, and it is Narada Muni. The first part is Narada Muni. He's checking out all the different types of devotees. First he goes to a pious Brahmin that's performing yajna and sacrifice. Then he goes all the way through the Pandavas and so on and so forth. So he is traveling all over the universe, but how is he traveling? Now, if you don't know anything, he's just like popping from one planet to the next. You understand? And you think in a kind of mystical way. He's doing a miracle. But actually miracles are just another form of manipulation of the material energy that you don't know about. Just like it's a miracle. Say I have a television over there and this is the remote control. Don't worry. It seems like a miracle. I'm controlling the television over there, right? But there's a methodology. This is emanating a signal, and it's being picked up by the television and it's going on off. So Narada Muni is not just like popping from one place to the next. There's a methodology of it. We don't know it. Just in the same way, we don't know how a chipkuli sticks to the ceiling, right? Actually we do. I saw a program on it. It explained that the scientists were thinking there's suction devices on their feet, right? But actually what it is, you see them walking sideways, up glass, across. So in this documentary I saw, this is the amazing potency of Krishna. on their feet, they have pads, and these pads have filaments coming out, and those filaments have more filaments, and these filaments are so fine at the edge, at the end, that they can practically grab the individual molecules of the glass. You know, we look at glass and we say, oh, look at that, it's really flat and reflective. But of course, if you looked with an electron microscope, you would see that the glass, it's a load of molecules packed in a line, and it's not level. So this little creature that sometimes drops in your lunch, maybe. They say it's good luck if one drops on your head. It's bad luck if it drops somewhere else. I don't know. Anyway, but the thing is, it has feet that can actually grab molecules, practically speaking. And that's how it works. Its feet are so fine, the surface, it can grab even the smallest indentations caused by a molecule. So there's a methodology. Now if you don't know, you think, oh, it's God making it, it's a miracle. But that's okay. That's okay. Yes, God is doing everything. But if you know the details, it's very thrilling, because you see how Krishna is doing things. For example, a horse. A horse has a very small heart. Did you know that? But in its hoofs, there's like a sponge. And when the horse runs or canters or gallops, this sponge is full of blood. And so by pressing down on the floor, this pumps the blood. So he has, like, when he's running, he's got 4 extra hearts pumping, because the sponges in his hoofs are being compressed. So it's driving the blood. That's why if a horse is just made to stand without using its feet like that, it can go lame. So, because its heart is overtaxed and so on. So a horse is made to run. So all these amazing qualities, the material nature, there is a methodology to it. You understand? It's not just... And if we don't know the details, we will fill in the blanks with our imagination, or some whimsical, it's a miracle, it just happened by chance, nobody knows. But so this is why Krishna is filling in the details. Aham sarvasya prabhuvo matakshabam pravartate. He's giving all these, in the last 6 chapters, he's giving all this knowledge so that the intellect, the consciousness of the soul of Arjuna and then the devotees is satisfied. You see? The basic structure is there. Everything is resting on Krishna, but there's all these amazing potencies. And those potencies are resting upon Krishna. And that is how the potencies are maintained. That is how the universe is maintained, by the control of Krishna. Ishvasya idam sarvam. Hari Ishvara. The first point of understanding the absolute truth is that it is the final point of control. So that is the beginning of knowledge. Therefore Krishna, later on he says, the super soul, he is knowledge. Because everything is resting upon him. And so when we, through Shastra, through Parampara, through Mahajan, through Sadhu, through Acharya, through Guru, when we absorb this knowledge, then we become satisfied with the understanding of the material world, and then but that isn't the point. The real point is that because everything is resting upon Krishna, then naturally the consciousness will flow to Krishna without ignorance, in a satisfied intellectual manner. Do you see the point? If your mind is satisfied that this is the way, all the details are, or not all the details of course, because Krishna is unlimited, but all the details, and they also help the sadhaka how to live in this world. Like there's like this thing about being equal-minded. Like, for example, I won't say who it is, but 5 days ago, somebody knocked on my door. It was a devotee, actually, not an ISKCON devotee. But he was asking, where is this Maharaj, where is Bhakti, this Pushan, this Maharaj, that? I said, you don't live here. So it was a Westerner, you know, all emotional. Oh. So I was thinking, you know, you should take the advice of the Shastra, and if things don't go, if you miss the bus, becoming frustrated and emotional doesn't bring the bus back to the bus station, does it? Just because you can't find the people that you want to find, just becoming angry on the doorstep, oh, that doesn't help. Stay equipoised. So Krishna is giving all this knowledge and detail how we can live, how we can cultivate the mode of goodness in the material energy. All this is very important. But at the same time, the real point, the basic point is that this is all resting on the Supreme Absolute Truth. And that is not verisimilitude. That is not Maya Shakti. That is not illusory conception, incomplete, fragmentary, inaccurate. But having the appearance of truth and having a certain quality of usefulness, right? But it is not the absolute truth. And you see in today's verse, importing this is, all these I declare to be ignorant knowledge, and besides this is ignorance, but accepting the importance of self-realization and philosophical search for the absolute truth. So Krishna says, yes, you are in all this energy, but the search, what is the search? He's saying the search is to understand this whole cosmic manifestation, the material energy, it is resting upon me. And here's the details of how everything works. And going back to Narada Muni, it is explained in Shastra. You can look it up here and there, different Garuda Puran, different Puranas. It explains, of course, now we're going to do the layout of the universe, 5th canto, right? So it is explained in the Shastra that actually, yes, everything it's called panthas. That there is Maru, it is the pivot of the universe, up to Swargalok, above that Mahalok, Janalok. But it is all pivot, and there's what's called panthas. In the ether, these are pathways. And the yogis, the Siddha yogis, they go to Mount Meru, which is not a gross object, but it is, if you like, electrical field. But that is very chudious. It is not just it is an electric energy resting on the absolute truth. Yes, but so the yogis, they go down these paths to Meru and then they come out in another one. It's like the spinal column. You know, the spinal column, and then different nerves branch out to different organs, the heart, the stomach, but all the nervous system is going up the pivot. So the whole universe is made like that. There's like a spinal column, and then there's nerve pathways, and the whole thing is woven together and maintained by these pathas, just like a spider's web. That is verisimilitude. It's not actually a spider's web, but it's just energy fields, and the yogis, they travel down these energy fields, just like you go to different roads going to different cities in India. So, in India, no, they got the roads right. The roads to Delhi go to Delhi. But the driver might not know that. But anyway, the point is the whole universe is actually, and all the potency, they work on certain principles. But the ultimate principle is that everything rests on the Supreme Lord. So when you read all the details about how the universe is constructed, 5th canto, Garuda Purana, all the Puranic Mahabharata, and different yogic state discussions, when you read all this, it's very fascinating. But the real point is to see that Krishna, and Krishna is not like a power station in one spot and all the electricity. Krishna is everywhere. This is also another point, because that would be verisimilitude, to think that Krishna is in one spot. He's actually, yes, he's in Golok. This is what Mother Kunti was disturbed about. You reside in Golok, but we see you're down here. You are the super soul and living everywhere, and yet you live separately. Huh? You have no enemy, yet you are the friend of the Pandavas, and you are chastising Duryodhana. How is all this? So this is the actual, here it is, philosophical search for the absolute truth. This is, all these things are resting upon Krishna, and it is understanding them in relationship to Krishna that gives the satyam. Then avidya becomes vidya. So this is something, if Karl Popper was here today, he could come to the Gita class and we'd sort him out. Yes. Yes, you're correct. You've got a good idea. But the final point is that everything is resting on the absolute truth. And by observing his action in the Prakriti, you can understand the Purusha, like we explained, the qualities of a devotee. They are also the qualities of the Supreme Lord. For Krishna doesn't say they're my qualities, but we can understand that. So all this is knowledge. This kind of symptom of consciousness, when it is applied to the material or spiritual energy, reveals the truth. Try to understand that. Once the absolute truth, what is that verse in the Gita? It says, one, Ashradha Dana Purusha Dharmasyasya Parantapa Apratyamam Nivartante Mrityu. No. Janati Purushottam Sa Savavid Bhajatima. One who knows me as the absolute supreme person is the knower of everything. So the devotees, when they realize the absolute truth, with this purified consciousness, when they apply it to material or spiritual phenomena, they understand it correctly. So that's the final point. And the final point is that route to the absolute truth. Whereas the material energy, the material scientists, they just think, oh, there's no God, forget him, it's just energy. And therefore they're always coming to incomplete and unsatisfactory conclusions that they have to revise. Therefore Nature magazine, it's every month or so, because there's a new theory every month, right? And if you go on the internet and you go to a science, one of these material science, it says, it could be, possibly, right? It's always like that. Perhaps 6 million years ago, dinosaurs, fell in a lake and learned to swim or something. But maybe it was 5 million years ago. We're not really sure. Possibly could be. You can read these articles. It's always possible. So their idea of knowledge is possibly could be. But if you go to Delhi railway station, say you do eventually get on the road, you have a good driver, and you go to Delhi railway station, where's the train to Calcutta? And, it's on it's possibly on platform A. Then his friend says, spits a bit of pan out of the corner of his mouth. In the middle of the platform. And he says, it could be on platform 15. And then another nutcase comes along. He says, no, it's for sure it's on platform 1. It's there right now. No train here. So it could be on 8. It could be on 15. It's now on number 1, but so this is not knowledge. If somebody says possibly could be, possibly that train is going to Calcutta. Are you going to get on that train? No, are you? You're nodding your head. Yeah, okay. You want to make sure. You want the correct understanding, and then you can go to Calcutta in confidence. Or you may get on the train and end up in Baroda and have to talk to Vasa Ghosh. That's not such a bad thing. So anyway, the point is that the Shastra, the Parampara, they supply the correct understanding, and then they tell it, and then they give you the correct methodology to realize it. And these symptoms here, they're very useful, very instructive. Remain balanced, remain peaceful, don't become entangled. Understand everything belongs to Krishna. So, and then you can come to the platform of realizing Krishna, and then when you realize Krishna, you will realize automatically your Swarup, your relationship to Krishna. That is also another mistake of the Sahajiya. They meditate on themselves. I'm a devotee, I'm a devotee. But no, if you want to be a devotee, meditate on the Supreme Lord. And they imagine I'm a this, I'm doing this, I'm wrestling with Krishna. Krishna's grabbing. No. You meditate on the absolute truth. This is the important point. This is the correction given by Bhakti Siddhanta, Bhakti Vinod and Prabhupada. That you meditate on the absolute truth, then you realize yourself. And there's an example, final point in the Gita. Krishna says, when you have absorbed that knowledge by which the absolute is understood, then that knowledge reveals everything. Just like when the sun comes up in the morning, everything is revealed. At night you can't see anything, maybe a meteor shower. But when the sun is up, you see everything clearly. So when Krishna is realized, then everything is clear. All right, we'll finish on that point. Thank you very much. Any question?
Something happened to us, and you can, at one point you can see that this all happening, it is like kind of illusory situation that our mind is there, and one point, one side of us may be telling us that is not reality, but at the same time we have this strong, like automatic principle in our nature or whatever.
You mean how can you be sure about
how can make cut? So you're not involved of this which you think and you feel it is not real, even though dragging us. For example, you start thinking something, you should do this, something, some attachment. You start thinking about that, and in the same moment, your mind saying, no, it's not that. Shastra may come in your mind. And the same, this is very strong tendency. So how we should control our mind, what you should preach to our mind. So
well, you control the mind by remembrance of Krishna. If you remember Krishna, if you practice remembrance, chanting of Krishna, then your mind will become conscious. You will not become subject to illusion. But in the stage of sadhana, yes, we may have a feeling that this is correct. So therefore we should refer to Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. Sadhu Sangha. So that's why we stay with devotees. And like Prabhupada instituted Istigosti, where devotees can discuss their own personal understandings. And they can discuss in a non-aggressive, in a friendly, sympathetic atmosphere. And they can reveal their heart in confidence. It's one of the actions of a devotee. And then they can make progress. Because yes, you may have this idea and this idea, but you should check your realizations against other devotees, particularly other devotees that are experienced, more realized. And detachment means that. Even in intellectual circles, this is something you can judge the intelligence of a person or emotionality of a person. People have an idea and they think that's the absolute truth. It's my idea. It popped into my head, so it's correct. But actually, the more intellectual, intelligent person, I've got this idea now, is it correct? Like often somebody says something and you say, well, that's not really correct. And does that mean that person is like a child? An intelligent person is able to take criticism and self-criticism. So yes, if ideas come to you, you should develop the point of view where you examine your own ideas for their validity in terms of Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. So that's the sage, that's the process of the sage, that he examines his own realizations for their validity. But particularly, it's recommended that devotees, they live together and they share their realizations and they put their realizations forward for understanding and examination. But you should do that, of course, revealing your heart in confidence. That should be done before somebody who is qualified, not some, moron. Right? But that's it. Learn to evaluate your own ideas and find somebody to put your ideas before. This is what people do naturally anyway, isn't it? When they talk, I think this, I think that. But we should be detached. But the immature people are very attached and they take a refutation of their ideas as a great personal attack. So those people, don't bother with them. You're wasting your time. Just nod your head, yes, yes. Like they say, don't argue with a fool, because after 1 minute, nobody can tell the difference. Discussion, argumentation, philosophical, and that's for intelligent people. Like children, you don't have philosophical discussion with children generally. You kind of like guide them along to a better idea. So, that's my advice on that point. That means detachment. Not becoming, I thought it, so it's the absolute truth. Some egotists think like that. Psychopathic, sociopathic people think like that. I want to do it, therefore I'll do it. Like they say, just do it. Well, a lot of psychopaths are doing just do it, Just do it is not a good idea. Just because you thought it doesn't mean to say it's correct. So that's why all this Shastra and all this knowledge is there. Because that becomes our contemplation. It purifies us. It's there. There's a verse later, I think number 19, I think. I think it's the sloka that's misprinted. Yes. Anyway, Krishna says that when you have this, when you understand this knowledge, you'll become liberated. That's what he says later on. Where's number 19? Yes, here it is. So Krishna says, what's the field, what's the activities, and Purusha Prakriti knowledge. Thus the field of activity, knowledge and the knowable have been summarily described by me. Only my devotees can understand this thoroughly, and thus, in this way, attain to my nature. So when you understand this, you attain to. So by study, contemplation of Krishna's words, instructions, this puts you, you attain to Krishna's nature. But only my devotees can understand it. Bhakti mam abhijananti. So you have to study with a devotional mood. You have to chant with a devotional mood. Not like a jnani. We have to chant, oh, this is the words of my beloved master, Krishna. He speaks wonderfully, right? And then Krishna reciprocates. So devotees understand thoroughly because of the mercy of Krishna. Because ultimately, what is this? It's black and white. It's shapes of black on white. So you're putting your eyes on it and it's going to the brain. But what's giving the realization, the understanding of what's written here? That is the super soul. Krishna says, Matak smatir jnanam apoha. I give knowledge, remembrance. I give everything from the super soul. So the devotee, when he studies with devotion, he chants with devotion, he realizes the knowledge. He realizes Krishna. The devotion, the devotional attitude is the key to transcending matter and entering the transcendental abode. So, we'll finish on this point. Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada Sadhu Sangha Ki. Yeah.